We are looking at the biomechanics of the abdominal group. And not only the biomechanics, but I also wanted us to look at the relevance of abdominal training and what is real functional abdominal strength. And obviously we're looking at that from person to person and what are clients wanting to achieve and how are we going to achieve it, and why do people always tend to think that abdominals is the be-all and end-all of everything to get spine strong, postures right. If you don't have abs, you have nothing. That's pretty much what everybody thinks. But we're going to debunk that today. So, I've got Carly here with me today and we're going to go through quite a few things. The first thing I want us to think about before I even start any kind of training is what is functional abdominal strength? What do we really need our abs for on a daily basis? What do we do in our everyday life where we have to actually use our abdominals? So, I want Carly to just stand sideways and I want you to think about this from your perspective. If you're working with your clients, open your feet a little bit for me and I want you to do just a general roll down. And looking at this position, I want you to understand, stop there, that even though the spine is flexing, the abdominals can literally hang down to gravity. We don't actually need them to do this exercise because gravity is allowing her to go down. The control of this movement actually comes from everything at the back. Eccentric control from hamstrings, eccentric control from glutes, which is hip extensors, eccentric control of the back extensors to stop her from just dropping down. Okay, so we know we don't need abs for that. So you're going to come back up. In a standing or postural position, how much abdominal strength do we need? I want you to think about all of the clients that you know that have really strong abs, but still don't stand in the best posture. I know that I do that when I get tired, so I'll stand anterior tilt. But if you do abdominal training with me, I'm going to be able to do the ab workout. So strength in a postural position is not the main factor. The main factor is awareness and understanding that the rectus abdominis and the obliques take the anterior pelvis, and when it shortens, it pulls it through a little bit. So it pulls it through, and if you understand how much flexion you have in your lumbar spine, you'll know how much you can actually pull it through. Obviously, when we're looking at that in relation to abdominals, and we're trying to pull that pelvis through from an anterior tilt to, say, a neutral position, we also have to look at the flexibility of the hip flexors in the front. What would restrict the abdominals actually pulling through? But the amount of effort required is really little. That I can promise you, because we did that with an EMG and it was really, really small. It didn't even go beep, it just went when we contracted the abs. Okay, so that's what we're looking at when we're thinking of functional abdominal activation in a postural position. Also remembering that not everybody stands in neutral, and it's actually okay if you stand in a little bit of an anterior tilt or a little bit of a posterior tilt. But if it becomes a problem or your back is under a lot of pressure, that's when we look at changing those pelvic tilts. So that's the functional activation of abs in a postural position. Why do we want to, for an anterior tilter that constantly stands like that and they feel that pressure in the lower back, teach them that control? Because it will create length in the lumbar spine, pulling the spinous processes a little bit away from each other and stop the crunching or the squashing of the spinous processes towards each other. Right, so that's in the postural position. Then, say now Carly's facing you, and she has to rotate and pick something up, all right, and come back up. The only time those abdominals are going to be really active is when she does that initial rotation, and then as she goes down, she can let it all hang. What's holding her there is everything over here to make sure that she actually doesn't drop down. So when it comes to the functional abdominal work in lowering your chest down to pick something up, that initial rotation, absolutely there's going to be an activation. But as soon as the body position changes with gravity, I want you to visualize the spotlight that we have in that Training Your Eye course. I love that spotlight. It makes so much sense to me. Think where the spotlight is shining. If that spotlight was up here, it would be shining on her back, because this is where the hold is happening. Gravity is just allowing her to hang there. She doesn't have any effort happening in the front to be in that position. So in the rotation going down, it's just that rotational part that will have those obliques kicking in, and then we know that there's spinal rotators as well. Let's not forget. So let's put her on her back quickly. I want you to think about all of your clients and what would restrict a normal functional movement. Rest your legs over there for me. Imagine you're lying on a bed. You're lying on a bed and it's wake up time and you're about to get up. All right? I want you to think about all of the clients that you have, because now we're looking at abdominals, but we want to understand it on a client-specific level. I have two particular clients, mother and daughter, who have extremely restricted lumbar spines, not due to tight muscles, due to structure and genetics. They are literally copy and paste. I hardly ever take them in a duet online, but when I do, I always take a photo and I say to them, I just want to show you how much you look like your mother, and I want to show you how much you look like your daughter, so that they can see that the spine is not mobile in the lumbar area, and it's never going to be, because they've tried over and over and they stay exactly the same. That would mean that when they sit up in a bed, they're going to have to do more hip flexor work. They'll have initial ab work, and then the hip flexors are going to pull them up, because the abdominals are not able to get to that deep concentric position due to the actual restriction of the mobility of their lumbar spine. So the abs are not going to get as much shortening as you would want them to get. And now you think of those types of clients who come and say they want a six-pack. It's going to be really tough, because they can't do that deep tuck with their pelvis to get those blocks shortening towards each other. And then of course there's a lot of other work that comes with a six-pack, like as in consistent ab work, high load or intense ab work, or lots of repetitions and a really good diet. It's the toughest thing to get. So let's just go for flatter, much easier. Okay, but for people who have mobility in the spine, they're always going to use their hip flexors coming up, but they will get the abdominals to shorten. But how much effort is required? How do people get up out of bed? Do they lie there and do a nice roll-up? How much energy is required in order to get them up? They'll do a bit of momentum to get themselves up, just to pull them up, or they'll hold behind their legs. So for that movement, absolutely, we will need a little bit of abdominal strength, but not high or super strong abs. Then I want to ask you, how often do you lie on your back in the day to get yourself up? You don't drop in the shopping center on your back and try and get up. You're mostly sitting or standing. You're mostly in positions where you hardly need the abdominals. Because when we sit like this. So the effort to sit upright, so you can sit up for me, just sit cross-legged. There we go. So this position here, she can let it all go. The effort in a sitting position behind a desk or in a car or wherever you are is going to come from the back extensors. When they lift up with the back extensors, that's what's going to maintain that position. In a sitting position, because the legs are forward, they'll want to go into that posterior tilt, but it is a resting posterior tilt, which means there is not a lot of ab work happening in that position either. So now we look at our functional daily movements, and I'm sure you can come up with a lot of others, or maybe you're doing some hectic sport, then it would be obviously very different. Or maybe you're doing, I don't know, horse riding or climbing or whatever the case might be. Depending on the sport that you do will also determine what your functional ab strength requirement is. For the purpose of this video, I want you to think of your majority clients. Look at the positions that they find themselves in often. If I think of the rugby player I'm working with, he does require abdominal strength for certain things that he does while he's actually playing his game. However, it's not necessarily his strongest point on his body. Because when we are training, we often do anything and everything we can and get all the cheats in to get through the exercise. As soon as you take that and you bring that exercise right back to the basics, you eliminate the compensations, you bring in that wonderful principle of alignment, the intensity of the work goes up, which we've also tested on an EMG. Now, when we look at abs, I want you to think of all of your clients and how many of them, so you can lie on your tummy for me. All right. How many of them, so this is in the way, but we're going to move it, put your hands over here and just press yourself all the way up. How many of them have that range in their spine? So they could be really weak, but really tight. And when those abs are tight, but they're not toned and they're not looking like the client wants them to and they don't have any strength, they can still be really tight, which then restricts every single client from doing full back extension. And they end up just trying to get up as high as they can, dropping into the shoulders because the instructor said, get up, because they cannot get that full spinal extension. However, the amount of spinal extension, again, is dependent on what that client's spine is capable of, not just muscularly, but structurally. Super important. Right, you're going to line your back for me. Now I want us to look at the biomechanics. Understanding the different abdominals. Most important thing that I really want to go through today is the transverse abdominis, which is the deepest layer of abdominals. We are not going to ask the transverse abdominis to pull the pelvis through, to bring us up into a chest lift, because it doesn't do that. The fibers run like this, which means that it brings everything in and it creates that corset effect. That is what it does. It protects the abdominal viscera. It works on expiration. When it creates that abdominal pressure, you've got the pelvic floor resisting it, and it gives a little bit of stability to the lower back vertebra, so to the lumbar vertebra. However, it doesn't create movement. You cannot say, when I have a strong core, my back will be safe. It will, however, when you do have that tighter torso, it pulls all of our extra adipose tissue, our extra breakfast, and whatever we're carrying closer to the center of our body. And as soon as these things come closer to the center of our body, we have less weight in the front. And when we have less weight in the front, this doesn't feel like it's carrying something ahead of it and it's holding on to it like that, because your transverse is going and pulling it back. What is the rectus abdominis and obliques going to do then? So if we say, well, the core isn't the be-all and the end-all of this whole equation, what are we going to rely on for a client who stands like this? We're going to rely on the muscles that create movement in a joint. We're going to rely on rectus abdominis and obliques to take the anterior pelvis and pull it through. So if we can teach our clients this, and we go through that in a lot of detail in the lower abdominal course, and lots of videos on here, if we can teach our clients to connect to this area, we are teaching them how to create lumbar and pelvic control with the use of the abdominals. As soon as I pull this through, I can start releasing this a little bit, not completely, and create that co-contraction between abdominals and back in a postural position, but I lose the co-contraction when I do this, because I don't need it. As soon as I change the angle of my body this way, the spotlight is now here, and now my abdominals are working. But when I'm here, this is working. I can, however, in this position, not allow this to hang down, because then it's got that weight pulling down again. It's like hanging a weight here from your belly button. So then you use the transverse to pull it back, to help the back kick in, and hold it without also having to hold this release or this weight. So it pulls it closer. That's your transverse abdominis. Rectus abdominis and obliques, pulling it through. They're attached onto the anterior pelvis. They have the function of lumbar flexion. So when they pull that pelvis into a posterior tilt, you get that lumbar flexion. When my legs are bent, it's easier for them to get the lumbar flexion. However, over here, they could be cheating. And they could be using glutes and hamstrings and pushing the feet down into the bed. And it's fine for some exercises. We do want them to do that. We don't want them never to do that, especially when I want to just mobilize and move the spine. But when I'm trying to teach lumbar control and pelvic control with the use of the abdominals, I want them to learn that you can activate your abdominals, rectus abdominis and obliques, and pull that pubic bone through. And they struggle with that. If this is a scoop and a soft belly and it's got a nice dip, it's wrong. I want to, that's it, thank you, Courtney. That's really wrong. When it just sucks in, it's not good. There's no activation here. This is legs and hammies doing all of this for her. I want to see, so go back, feel like your pubic bone is pulling towards your rib cage against bubble gum. It's resisting the bubble gum that's stuck your bum to the bed. So that's creating that resistance and that illusion of there has to be an activation. Now that you have this activation, you can roll up through your spine using your glutes and hamstrings. Your abs are not movers at this end point. It's not holding you up at all. No abdominals are holding you up here. What's holding you up here is glutes, hamstrings. You definitely have back extensors kicking in. But your abdominals have a function here. They are here to stop you dropping your pelvis. They're here to stop you arching your back. All right? So she's going to keep that pubic bone pulling through with the abdominals. The more she uses her abs to pull the pubic symphysis through, the more her glutes and hammies can kick in. Even though this is not the ultimate exercise for glutes, it's still a good exercise to teach hip extension, getting the hip extensors to kick in, and getting the hip flexors to lengthen. Then we look at rectus abdominis and obliques, and we say, okay, every time her stomach flattens and hardens, I know that she has TA, transverse abdominis. When she does any ab work and it comes out, I know that she's losing TA, but she can still do the movement, so it's not the end of the world. I am trying to get my client to flatten the abs because that's what she asked for, so I actually do want TA. And I want the client to learn to be able to hold TA, maybe 10 to 15%, to pull breakfast back towards the spine. All right? So, hands are behind your head. Now, we know that the rectus abdominis has compartments. We know that we can keep this section, well, we should be able to, and tuck that section. Doesn't mean that this is not working. It is working, but we're moving here because we have the compartments, taking it back to neutral, maintaining a stability of neutral position here, and working the abdominals to just move the top, but the stayed. Pulling down means TA. Popping up still means rectus abdominis is working, but just not so much TA, and controlling it back down. So now rectus abdominis, we want to teach our clients to isolate. We want to teach them to be able to tuck, release, maintain, chest lift, release. And this is just developing mind-body connection so that that information can be transferred in a postural position, just to create length and alleviate pressure on the discs, because we collapse like this all the time. Now, let's look at a normal single leg lift. So all I want you to do, because we're understanding the biomechanics, she's going to cheat when she lifts her right leg up to 90 degrees. So she lifts it. Okay, that was a vicious cheat. Let's make it mild. So lift this leg up for me. Right, so she goes into a little bit of a tuck. Clients tuck here, not because those abs are overactivating. Where has that ever happened? They tuck here because they're pushing this into the ground, or they've brought this knee too far in and they don't have the flexibility here in the glutes. when they lift the leg up, they also do a rotation of this hip up, the hip that's staying down. So lift this leg and they do that rotation. Now I want you to think, what is a rotation? And this systole. Where is that rotation coming from? It's coming from the spine, and think about all of the muscles that create rotation. Ooh, some of them are the obliques, internal and external. So now we're going to teach our client that when you lift this leg up, inhale, exhale, gentle activation, enhance the activation in your opposite obliques, and then lift this leg up, hold. Now we're teaching them stability that will eventually become really nice and involuntary, to the point that when they're doing anything else and they're allowing their body to move through movement, which we want, when it gets to that point where they're going to need a little bit more hold on the opposite side just for stability, they'll be able to do it. Now, when we teach our clients this, we're not teaching them to be stick men. We're teaching them the art of stability so that when it is required, they'll have it. Now, if she's in that position, she lifts this leg up, hold. That opposite oblique section is holding on. When she then takes this leg to 45 degrees, I want you to think about what's happening now. As soon as this leg pulls away, it's a longer lever, becoming more challenging, which means the lever moves away and the abs are required to hold on a little bit more. TA, only if you want it to go flat. Rectus abdominis, yes, because if she doesn't maintain rectus abdominis, she's going to arch her back. She's going to release it. So you're teaching your clients that your blocks and obliques are here to maintain stability for your anterior pelvis, to ensure that your lumbar spine doesn't get crushed every time you do movements, bringing it back in. Hold that for me. Put your hand in the front here. Now, hip flexors and abdominals love working against each other. The hip flexors pull you into that. The abs pull you into this. So they are antagonists in this movement. When we do ab work, we know our clients want to go into that when they are not strong enough. I'm going to have her gently press her hands up against her knee. This activates hip flexors. When I activate hip flexors and I say to her, oh, but hang on, don't change the position of your spine. Okay, don't change it. So you're going to press that in, no arching. If I say to her no arching, the only thing that'll stop it is abs. Abs will stop her from arching because I've got her in this position, so we're not thinking glutes. She's going to press that in there. Hold just a little bit, and you can increase that pressure the stronger they get. This leg is going to extend to 45 degrees. 1, and replace it down. There we go. Straighten it out again. 2, I'm training the abs to maintain the anterior pelvis. And 3, placing it down. Last one, 4, hold. Why do their abs struggle in this position? You can see she's shivering because it's easier to do a chest lift than to get abdominals working in their neutral position. And we want to also be able to do that. So this is how I'm getting obliques and rectus abdominis to maintain the pubic symphysis position. If I want to increase the shortening, dependent on the amount of flexion that the client has in their lumbar spine, I'm going to have her do the same thing, but I want to see a change in the pelvis. We're not keeping it, so we can go back there. You need to do the other leg. I worked out yesterday. Okay, so let's go. Right, so we're pressing that in. You're going to lift this leg up and squash the back down this time because I'm training those abs to shorten, and it's tough, it's tough, it's tough. Place the leg down, neutral. Exhale, tuck, press, reach. Abs are working. This is how we train those abs to strengthen. Now we're teaching her that movement. Oh, you know you just did that? Now when you're standing, I want you to do the same thing. It's that same activation, except it's really small. It's not intense. It makes the EMG go instead of beep, beep, beep. Okay, let's do it again. So we press the back down, we extend the leg up, we hold it, because isometric is good for 10, 9. And now you can cue, trying to flatten as well, even though it's got nothing to do with the position you're in. And keep holding it deeper, and hold. Now press that back down a bit more. As you press your hands in a bit more, and relax it. Hick, tick. All right. Now I'm going to put her on here because we're always working at supine. And I want us to get the abdominals to work through their full range because we're training people to have longevity in the joints, in the spine. So I want us to get the abdominals to stretch and to shorten. Your clients might be uncomfortable doing this position. Let me tell you, as soon as you get your clients to start working abs from eccentric to a shorter position, they're going to start burning a lot quicker. What gets abs tighter, what gets them more toned, is consistent ab work, if that's what they're after. And you've got to give it time. You know what your clients are like. It's like, I've been doing abs for 2 weeks and I don't see a difference. Yeah, do it for 6 months, okay? And everything is age dependent, and everything is wine consumption dependent, and everything is gin consumption dependent, burgers and chips consumption dependent. You know, we're just saying clients need to also understand that. You want flat abs, there's some extra work you have to do. So she's going to relax all the way over. Now, depending on her ability to do this, I could stick her pelvis right back into that groove and get that full extension in her spine. But this is a relaxed, draping, gravity helping extension. When your client never does this, that position is going to be uncomfortable. And if their spine is not capable of it, then we want to try and get them to do a bit more of it, but within a certain boundary for them as well. When they go over here, they're probably going to tell you, oh, this is stretching so much, because they're always here, here, or here. So they never open this out. Now, I want you to think eccentric to concentric. If we work this eccentric to concentric, eccentric to concentric, eccentric to concentric, why don't we work this eccentric to concentric? Stretch it out. Get that mobility in the spine. This is what joints actually want to do, is they want to move. So she's relaxing all the way over. Here's the thing. She can cheat, start lifting her head, bring her elbows forward, and I've still seen hardly any change there. So you're going to go over for me. I want her to think that her exhale is going to initiate this movement, because when her ribs pull down, the rectus abdominis has to do that, because that's what's pulling her up, not her transverse abdominis, not her core. Inhale, over. And eccentric, coming up. And I want you to try and lift this section off me. So you're going to press your back in there a little bit. There we go. So I'm shortening it. And then inhale all the way over. I want a big inhale because it opens the ribs out and it pulls the abs away as well. Exhale, bringing it up, shorten, hold, and inhale over. So now we change it. She's going to come up the same way, all the ways to work the abs. Hold it. Extend your spine up. Hinge back. Neutral ab work. Neutral ab work. Oh, that's tough. And lowering it down. Exhale, bringing it up. And now extend up. Now, rectus abdominis and obliques are going to resist gravity as she hinges back. Hip flexors have to resist as well. And lowering it down. And one more. Bringing it up. Hold. Extend. Hardly any effort there. When your client comes up this high, you must know it's squidgy, nothing's happening. Now she hinges back. Abs hold, abs hold, abs hold. And gently lowering it down. One more. And bringing it up. Bringing it up. Sitting up tall. Nice. Now shuffle your glutes back into this group when you're complete. Right, so now she's got a little bit of support here at her sacrum. And it's a bit easier for her to do a small hinge back. Hip flexors are going to hold her. So she's going to do a little hinge back. One. And then bring it back up. And I'm going to make her exhale back. Exhale. Two. Inhale, pull up. Movers are hip flexors. We go. Hip flexors hold on eccentrically. And then they shorten concentrically. But abs keep working in that neutral position. And we go back, no back extensors required unless she's tucking, and bringing it back. One more. And gently taking it back, hold, and bringing it back. So now we have everything working, but transverse is still just there, trying to keep it nice and flat. All right, shuffle your bum forward for me, right to the front. Lie back. Okay, now I want you to think, hands behind your head, bend your legs in. I want you to think, we've established that when you lift these legs up, as soon as the legs become heavy, the pelvis wants to start playing and it wants to start arching. The only thing that stops that is the control of rectus abdominis and obliques on the anterior pelvis. When we do rotation of the spine, I want you to think of all of the compensations that your clients make when they do rotation. So she's going to come up in a normal chest lift, okay? Hold. I want you to rotate over that way. Normally when clients rotate, they lift this hip up with them, which means they get adduction and abduction instead of spinal rotation. Bring it back to the center. We're going to do it to that side again. Same thing applies when we were doing single leg lift and we asked this hip to hold back with the use of the obliques. She's going to rotate over and hold this hip back so she can get rotation in the spine. And bring it back. You've only got about 30 degrees, by the way, so further than that, you've got to be cheating somewhere. Rotate over to me, but that hip holds back and bringing it to the center. Can you see that she can rotate and release her transverse? Release your transverse as you rotate. Yeah, because it's not doing that rotation for her. Right, bring it back to the center. Rotate over, hold. Good. Now, she's rotating, she's staying high. If I want to challenge her a little bit more, all I have to do is ask her to extend this leg to 45 degrees. Hold that. So that is challenging this oblique while she's rotating over to that side, because this leg is heavy, which means this side is holding on a little bit more to maintain that anterior pelvis. Bring it back into the center. Place it down. God, it's like, okay, we really need to stop doing that. Wait until you see tomorrow's video. That's when I worked it hard. That's pretty cool. Okay. The other cheat that your client does is bring it up. Hold. They shorten shoulder to hip when they think they're doing rotation. All right? So they get the short shoulder to hip. Now that is obliques, but I want you to look at where gravity is and where effort is. The spotlight is over here. We want them to do rotation. They could be resting there. I want her to take this shoulder over to that knee. Open the elbow. Open the elbow. Keep this hip back if you want. Flatten the abs. It's working. Now extend that leg to 45. Right. She extends that leg. This hip has to hold back. And we're training the abdominals to maintain stability in this area. Bring the leg in and lower it down. Sideways for me, Carly. Okay. So now we're looking at oblique work. And we're thinking what shortens, because we're thinking abs, what shortens hip to rib and rib to hip. We know quadratus lumborum does that. So it's going to work with your obliques, especially if you are going to do that shortening movement. Okay. So we can work the obliques in a concentric position, and we can work them in a neutral position, and I'm going to show you how. And depending on the shortness of your spine corrector, she can also work them from eccentric to up, which you're going to see in the videos coming up. Okay, so we won't do it today because she won't make it. Relax all the way down. This hand is behind your head, and for today we're going to take this arm up. Okay, we're not going to make it too difficult. Now, when we're doing ab work, think of the cheats that you'll have and why they will have it. Biomechanics of abdominal work. What deletes the ab work? If she has tight hip flexors and you ask her to put her leg behind her. Okay? Because as soon as you put a tight hip flexor with a leg behind you, she has to arch her back. Because she doesn't have the flexibility to get to that minus 20 degrees. So, for the purpose of a tight hip flexor, we bring it slightly forward. You can even just allow the knee to soften, all right? So we don't have that stretch over the front of the hip. The other thing that they do is, when they're going to come up, so let's take your head back slightly. When they come up, they flex the spine to bring themselves up. So flex and lift. You've seen that for sure. So we get rectus abdominis with the obliques, which is fine, but we're trying to teach them how we want to just go and target there. We'll do this when we do the ones that we did where you were lying on your back. Can you just focus on obliques for me here to the best of your ability, even though this will be kicking in, but it's not your primary mover. So we're going to inhale there. Exhale in a Smartie box. I don't know if you all get Smarties, but it's a little sweet box. So you're in it, which means you don't flex forward, you don't arch your back. Your pubic bone has to stay in that position with the use of the rectus abdominis and obliques. Yes, the movers are going to be the obliques. When she goes down, I'm going to challenge her. I want you to go up and over my arm this way as she goes down to get that length in the obliques before she lowers. Now, if she's sitting on the spine correctly in the wrong position, she can't do it. So position is everything. Sit up for me, I'm going to fix you. Put your bum right in that groove. I want to sit up against there, even more. Yes, and lie all the way over. Now I'm giving her a better chance of getting that length in position. So I'm training the obliques to do concentric and neutral, resisting gravity going down. So arms over there, always looking at shoulders. You're going to curve it up as you come up. We lift, hold. When you go down, we go up and over. Beautiful. If she gets QL, we roll this hip back and the shoulder back a little bit. Because now the spotlight is shining over there. We exhale, come up like that. Lift, hold, much better. Shortening the side as you go up and over. Beautiful. And again. And we bring it up, having the spotlight to the front. Hold this, bring this hip slightly back for me. There we go. Take the shoulder with it, otherwise I've got rotation. Going up and over. Beautiful. Now, as soon as I lift this leg up, this oblique is going to take more effort to maintain the pelvis. Don't do it yet, I'm going to show you. So you're going to take this arm slightly forward. Exhale, bring it up again. Hold. I want you to lean over a little bit more this time, just there. You're going to rotate that shoulder over to this knee, bring this knee in towards you. 1, control it back. There we go. And 2, don't put the leg down. I want that to stay active. And 3, the hip abductors are also going to hold. And 4, now watch this, don't over twist because then you're going to get Q up. And 5, you can twist lots this way, not this way. And exhale, 6, draw deep, and back. Last one for me, hold. This angle is easier than if I took this whole picture and I had her there. And I want you to round and curve, shoulder to knee, draw it in, draw it deep. Now, I'm creating that movement in the spine, getting everything to shorten, rectus abdominis and obliques. Bring it to extension for me, that leg out, extension, and relaxing over. It works. Silence. Right, so we want to understand where gravity is. The spotlight is over here. However, let's move this away quickly. I'm just going to put it there because I'm not going to kill you. Elbow base, side support. Where is the effort coming from? That's what you must ask. So this leg is over there. So now the effort is no longer here. The effort is from the bottom. So now the spotlight is coming from the floor facing upwards, which means it's the bottom sections obliques that are going to be kicking in now, along with hip abductors, shoulder stabilizers, serratus anterior, deltoids, everything. But let's just focus on obliques, all right? Now, obliques are synergists to rectus abdominis when we do flexion. Rectus abdominis is a great synergist to obliques when we're doing lateral flexion. I want you to go up into that side support and hold. Right, so she's up there. Take this arm up. If I rotate her slightly there, that spotlight is shining beautifully. Okay. That spotlight is shining beautifully on her obliques. If I make her tuck slightly, I don't know the back thing. If I make her tuck, it's getting more into those obliques. If she rolls backwards, that spotlight is going to be on her QL and back, which is why she has that leg in front, because this leg in front is going to stop her from rolling this hip back to me and going to back extensors and quadratus lumborum. Bring it back to the side and relax. Hectic. So now the effort came from the bottom. So the bottom abdominals, the bottom obliques were working, but then the pelvic position in relation to gravity will decipher whether you're going to be doing an oblique exercise but getting into QL and back, or are you actually going to be getting into your obliques. Cool beans. You can sit up and just chill. Okay, so we can carry on with this for days, because then we can even go further and say, well, how much range does your client have in this movement? And we know clients are not good with this because they're so tight, because they're always like this. And they're not good with extension in the spine because they never do that. And because they don't have those ranges, they're not able to work their abdominals in their full range, whether we're doing flexion or whether we're actually doing lateral flexion. And it's a lack of having that type of mobility that then ends up creating all kinds of other problems later on. However, your clients who are structurally stiff in their spine, as in it's never going to change. I don't know if you've seen this pattern, but I've seen this pattern over the last 24 years, is the clients who have a more structurally tight spine tend to have a lot less issues than the clients whose spines are really able to move, because the more the spine can move, the more the discs can play. And the clients who are more stuck and can't actually get that mobility in their spine and never will, they tend to not have so much play, and therefore they just seem to be okay, even though everything else might not be. So understanding rectus abdominis and obliques, that they often work hand in hand, understanding where the effort is coming from, what role gravity is playing, and how little role your transverse abdominis is playing when you're creating movement is crucial. You can do all of those exercises without a TA, but it's great if you can do it with a TA, because we've established why it's beneficial. But when your client says, I need a stronger core because I have backache, you have to determine whether they need abs because they stand in a good position but everything hangs forward and you just want to pull it back, or do they stand like this and they need to pull through, or is your client a posterior tilter and abs is actually not the problem? That's going to be more lengthening, drawing up in the back and getting this pelvis to rock back a bit, but not just rock back without the length. Looking at your functional everyday abdominal movements will also determine how strong your client's abs need to be for them to get that relief for their back. Like, what movements are you doing? Looking at people who have strong abs and then saying you need strong abs because your pelvis is in an anterior tilt doesn't make any sense. We've got to look at flexibility of hip flexors. We've got to look at how much the abs are actually able to activate just a little bit. What is the awareness of it? Can it just pull the pubic bone through? Do they know how to do that movement? Is there a mind-body connection? And that's why educating your client in the program is the best way for you to help your client obtain longevity. Cool beans! So I think that gives you a little bit more insight into abdominals and the goals that your clients might have and what is achievable, and looking at it from all different angles, where they're sitting, lying, standing, what are their functional movements. Tomorrow we'll be putting a video up of training the abs hard, and that's for the clients that want those strong abs, they want those flat abs, maybe they even want a six-pack. And just being able to take your client to the next level, because we all want to progress, even when it's something as simple as abdominal work. We can carry on for days with all the different ab exercises that we can do, whether we're prone, like a plank. Oh my gosh, we didn't do a plank. Yeah. Go plank. Don't know, I forgot about the plank. Right, okay, so let's quickly have a look at this. If I have her take her right leg back, curl toes under. Think about the common compensation when people do this. They arch their back, second leg back. What does an arched back mean? It means abs didn't hold the pubic symphysis. So you have to, again, that basic exercise where she was pushing her hand on your knee, is preparing her for exercises like this, where the abs can pull the pubic symphysis through, regardless of whether the transverse abdominis is actually holding her. And then we've got shoulders and all of that stuff in it as well. You want to be able to teach your client to hinge up. So we're teaching them hip dissociation, and then curl down like a pelvic curl, abs holding the pubic symphysis. That's how you train them to do it in a plank. And hinging it up, getting that extension, and then pubic symphysis reverse pelvic curl because it's holding the pubic symphysis relaxed down. So that's why that's a fantastic exercise for abs, and you don't need your glutes at all. Cool beans. I hope that helps, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday, for the next topic.